Hey everyone, Grim here, and today I'm going to be going over the Halo 2 HD mod that I've been working on for the past couple months. This mod adds support for 480p, 720p, and 1080i video resolutions to the original Xbox version of Halo 2. There's also some quality of life updates such as customizable field of view, split screen orientation, and reduced texture and model pop-in. Now you might be thinking, but wait, doesn't Halo 2 already support 480p on the original Xbox?
Nope. Nope. Aha!
And technically, yes, the box does claim it supports 480p, and the console will output a 480p signal when playing. However, internally, the game is still rendering at 640 by 480. In fact, it always renders at 640 by 480 regardless of your video settings or AV cables that you're using. Halo 2 on the original Xbox has never natively rendered in 480p, at least not until now. Here we have the original game in upscaled 480p on the top and proper 480p on the bottom. By upscaled 480p, I mean the game is rendering in 640 by 480 and being upscaled to 480p afterwards. So while the console is outputting a 480p signal, the game is not actually rendering in 480p natively, and the final image is technically no better than standard definition. If you have widescreen enabled on the console, the video output is arguably worse, as the game will be applying anamorphic scaling to the final image. Ever notice how things seem a little off when playing Halo 2 in widescreen? Like the Zanzibar wheel, for example, which looks more like an egg than a circle. That's the result of anamorphic scaling. It's rendering 1.33 times the normal view width into the same 640 pixel wide image. Don't like how that looks? Well, don't worry, because with this mod you can disable it. Next up we have upscaled 480p versus 720p. As you can see, there's a lot more on screen and the details are noticeably more clear compared to the upscaled 480p and even proper 480p. Finally, we have upscaled 480p versus 1080i. Now, you'll probably notice that the 1080i version is lagging very hard, and I'll get to that in more detail later. The truth is that while the Xbox is only outputting a 1080 interlaced signal, the game is rendering at full 1080p progressive internally. Yes, the game is actually rendering at 1920 by 1080 before converting the final frame into interlaced signal that gets displayed on screen. I don't consider the 1080i mode to be playable, and it's really only here because I wanted to see if I could actually get the game to render in 1080p, and also so I could take some sweet screenshots. To give you a better idea of the difference between each video mode, I've made this image of coagulation that shows the effective size for each resolution. As you can see, the difference between standard definition and 480p is quite small, but comparing those to 720p or higher, the difference is much greater. Before I get into performance benchmarks, let's talk a little bit about hardware requirements for this mod, because there are some. The absolute minimum requirements to use this mod are some form of video cables that support HD signals. This could be component cables, HDMI AV cables such as the Chimeric adapter or any similar adapter that plugs into the console's AV port, or an HDMI mod chip such as the Xbox HD Plus. Anything that gives you HD video output will work with this mod. The proper 480p video mode will work on any Xbox console regardless of what hardware modifications you might have. However, the 720p and 1080i video modes will only work if you have a console with 128 megabytes of RAM. This means you must have performed a RAM upgrade to increase the amount of RAM on the console from 64 to 128 megabytes. These video modes require more memory than a stock Xbox console has, and there's simply no way to support them without doing the RAM upgrade. In fact, to even get proper 480p video to work, I had to steal some memory back from the game, which will result in some additional texture pop-in while playing. This is likely why the game always renders at 640 by 480 and only upscales to 480p instead of rendering at 480p natively. There simply is not enough memory on the console to support higher resolutions while rendering the rich detailed environments that Halo 2 has. The good news is that if you do have a console with 128 megabytes of RAM, not only do you get to use 720p and 1080i video modes, but I've also done a considerable amount of work to use as much of that memory as possible and more or less eliminated texture and model pop-in entirely. Okay, well what about a CPU upgraded console? Surely that gets better performance than a stock console, right? Actually, no, it doesn't. The performance bottleneck in Halo 2 is all GPU and memory speed. So having a CPU upgraded console will not give you any additional performance boosts for Halo 2. Now, I can't really do anything about the memory speed bottlenecks for technical reasons, but this patch does have the ability to overclock the console's GPU to increase performance, and it's entirely configurable using an INI file that comes with the mod. How high you will be able to overclock your console's GPU depends on its unique properties. See, every GPU is unique. Some can clock very high, some moderately high, and some will hardly clock higher than stock speeds. In order to get the best performance, you'll want to fine-tune the overclocking settings for your specific Xbox console. However, there are some risks associated with doing this, which are outlined in detail on the GitHub page and in the INI file. Before trying to overclock your console's GPU, you'll want to read those carefully and take some precautionary measures, such as putting on fresh thermal paste, perhaps installing an additional fan inside the console, and getting a temperature probe to monitor GPU temps while overclocking. As long as you take these precautionary measures, overclocking the GPU is relatively safe. The INI file comes with what I consider to be a safe set of default values for overclocking the GPU that will give you a performance boost without having to worry much about the GPU overheating. The INI file will even let you adjust the console's fan speed when the game is running to help keep it cool. Okay, so what's the performance like with the GPU overclocked? Smooth 60 FPS, right? Well, not quite. When running in 480p mode, there isn't really a need to overclock the GPU, and the game will still run at a solid 30 FPS. In 720p mode, you'll want to get your GPU overclocked to around 300 MHz, up from the stock 233 MHz clock speed. At this point, the bottleneck will fall more on memory speed than GPU speed, and further increasing the GPU clock speed won't really provide any noticeable performance improvements. At 300 MHz in 720p, the performance is pretty decent, seeing around 30 FPS on multiplayer maps when there's no battle action, and around 20 FPS when in a fight. This may not seem great for multiplayer, but this is really as good as it's going to get. I've spent a ton of time trying to find additional things in the game I could optimize to squeeze more FPS out of it, but I've pretty much pushed the console to its absolute limits. After all, the original Xbox came out in 2001 and is now sporting a 23-year-old GPU. It can only do so much even with overclocking and hardware upgrades. In campaign, you'll see FPS in the high 20s that sometimes dip into the teens during cutscenes. Overall, I'd say the game is highly playable in 720p, and this is the mode I recommend everyone give a try if you can. The slight decrease in FPS is more than worth it to be able to play and watch the campaign cinematics in HD. And for 1080i, completely non-playable. When running in 1080i mode, the game is actually rendering at 1080p internally. Multiplayer and single player will run at single-digit FPS no matter how high you overclock the GPU. 1080i mode is really just to take screenshots and nothing more, though you're free to try it and see for yourself. Earlier, I mentioned that if you have a console with 128 MB of RAM, I patched the game to utilize this extra memory and more or less eliminated pop-in. If you're running the original mechanical hard drive that came with the console, there will still be some texture pop-in, though it will be greatly reduced compared to how bad it was in the stock version of the game. To further help model and texture pop-in, I added an option in the INI file to increase the hard drive transfer speed. Yes, that's right. Not only does this mod overclock your GPU, but it also speeds up your hard drive. This will help reduce pop-in and improve loading times. To show these improvements, here is a clip of the opening cinematic for Old Mombasa in two different views.
Any idea what it means?
Dear humanity, we regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth.
The message just repeats.
You can see there's a noticeable difference compared to the stock version of the game. For the fastest speeds possible, you'll need to upgrade to an 80-pin IDE cable instead of the 40-pin cable that comes with the console. This will let you use transfer speeds of UDMA 4 and 5, which provide up to a 300% improvement over the stock UDMA 2 transfer speeds. If you don't have an 80-pin IDE cable, the fastest speed you'll be able to use is UDMA 3, which gives approximately 33% increase in transfer speeds. But really, an 80-pin IDE cable only costs a few bucks and only takes a few minutes to install, so I highly recommend upgrading.
Seconds out.
Stand by to... Whoa.
In addition to everything I already mentioned, I also added a few quality of life improvements such as disabling anamorphic scaling, customizable field of view, and a toggle to change how the screen is divided for split screen play. There's a couple side effects from using this mod, or more so things I wasn't able to fully fix, but most of them are non-issues and don't affect gameplay. First up, the intro, attraction, and credit videos still render in 640 by 480. I considered changing the resolution these play at to match the video resolution being used, but it'll result in them being stretched and look quite bad. I may consider adding an option for this in the future, but didn't have time to do so before the first release. Next, the menus and some of the miscellaneous widgets in the main menu still render in 640 by 480 or are not using proper width and height values. I tried to fix this early on, but the placements for all the menu widgets are based around a 640 by 480 screen resolution, and it's non-trivial to scale them all dynamically. This will most likely never get fixed, but doesn't affect functionality or gameplay, so other than looking weird, it's not really an issue. Lastly, the player HUD elements will get smaller as you use higher resolutions. Again, I tried to fix this early on, but it's non-trivial to fix and would most likely require making new bitmaps for all HUD elements and calculating new positions for the higher screen resolutions. While this might be annoying to some, I don't really see it as a huge issue, and given I already invested more than a week of time into the HUD alone with no fruitful results, I most likely won't be fixing this in the future either. Oh, and enjoy your comically small ADS scopes. Also, if you notice that the black levels on this video are crushed, that's due to the chimeric HDMI adapter I'm using. It seems to normalize the color values from the output video and causes the blacks to get crushed and some colors to get washed out. Depending on what video adapter or mod you use, your results may vary. However, this problem has annoyed me enough that I'll be investigating if I can correct this in-game and add it as a configurable option in a future update. So that covers most of the Halo 2 HD mod. Currently, the mod only supports the 1.0 version of the game, so you won't be able to play it on Insignia just yet. I do plan to update it to the 1.5 version of the game, which will make it compatible with Insignia at some point in the future. Overall, I highly recommend getting a console with 128 megabytes of RAM and customizing the GPU overclocking settings, as this will let you play in 720p and provide what I feel is the best experience for this mod. All of this and more is covered in the GitHub wiki pages I linked down below. I do have a blog post coming in the next few weeks that covers all the technical details for how I made this mod, including patching the game's rendering engine and memory allocation functions, hot patching the Xbox operating system to utilize the extra RAM, overclocking the GPU, and doing tons of performance benchmarks to fine-tune things as best I could. While this mod may not seem like much, it took hundreds of hours of work modifying both hardware and software to push the Xbox console to its absolute limits. This video doesn't even begin to show the work that went into this project, only what the results of that work were. I want to give a huge shout out to Doom for encouraging me to do this, providing hardware for testing and insight into some deep technical areas, and also to everyone who helped beta test this mod before release. Finally, a big thank you to everyone at Bungie who helped make this game and everyone that worked on the original Xbox console. I've had an incredible time reverse engineering this great game on a great platform. Thanks everyone for watching this video. I'll now close out with a clip of what I consider to be one of the most iconic cinematics in the game in 720p using all the features I talked about.
Me inside your head now. How much time was left?
You don't want to know.
Cairo, this is an Emberclad. The carrier shield is down. I'm in position and ready for immediate assault.
Negative, Commander. Not against a ship that size. Not on your own.
Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
I know what you're thinking, and it's crazy.
So, stay here.
Unfortunately for us both, I like crazy. Just one question. What if you miss?
I won't.
For a brick, he flew pretty good.
Chief, get inside. Gear up. We're taking this fight to the surface.
The message just repeats. Regret, regret, regret.
Catchy. Any idea what it means?
Dear humanity, we regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth.
And we most definitely regret the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet! Hoorah!
Regret is a name, Sergeant. The name of one of the Covenant's religious leaders, a prophet. He's on that carrier, and he's calling for help.
Immediate. Grid Kilo 2-3 is hot. Recommend mission abort.
Roger, Recon.
It's your call, Sarge.
We're going in. Get tactical, Marines!
Master Chief, get aboard that carrier. Secure the Prophet of Regret. This is the only place on Earth the Covenant decided to land. That Prophet is going to tell us why.
30 seconds out.
Stand by to... Whoa.
Hey, wake up.
Shake it off, Marines! Clear the crash site. Go, go, go!